the speakers for this fireside chat discussion. I would like to call upon Mr. Sarang Kishore Deshpande, the Associate Director of Platform Practices, Accenture. Please, all of you, give a big round of applause. And I would like to invite Mr. Anish Bharat, the founder of Brokered Solutions, LLC. Yes, all of you, please give a big round of applause to these gentlemen. And let us begin with the fireside chat.
Once again, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. We will be talking about leveraging technology for supply chain. I think I'd like to introduce Saran, and I'd like to ask Saran, what would your experience and comparing with the current situation, your experience in supply chain and your technology, your involvement in it could be valuable.
Yeah, very warm afternoon to everyone. I think we had a very exciting topic just before this, and moving from gaming to supply chain is like a transition for all of us. So, thank you for that question. So, quickly introduce myself, Sarang, and I've been into the supply chain space from last around 24 years. I started my journey from a manufacturing firm that I was working for as our client, and I got exposed to some of the nuances of how the manufacturing works, right from the assembly line to how they source material, right, working hand in hand with them. Then basically I had an exposure to work with multiple retail customers as part of my IT engagement. During that time, I got exposed to the areas such as branding, merchandising, and some of the key parts that make I think revenue for some of these retailers. And then I worked for towards the distribution side of things, right, wherein many times when these as part of the supply chain, when these retailers are not having their own sales or stores, they will actually bank, especially the large beauty retailers, they will bank on their partners or distributors to sell all their equipment. So basically I have been exposed to that, and then after that that is when actually I started getting more and more exposed, because at that time supply chain was mainly process driven, but then as time passed, I think most of the supply chain started being technology driven. So that is where I got exposed to some of the platforms, right, the supply chain platforms, and they were like disrupting at that time, and they were taking world by storm. If you have heard about some of the platforms, right, Flex or E2 Opens of that sort, so we were partnering with them. I got exposed to those kind of platforms, of supply chain platforms. Then I actually, uh, right now, recently, I've been working on with some of our partners who are mainly into sourcing, procurement, sales contracting, right, all those kind of spaces. So, having been exposed to patches of supply chain, I think it's a very topic very close to my heart. So, thanks for asking that question, Anish.
Okay, thank you, Saran. Thank you for that. Let's take this chat into different sections. What we could go around is why we need to, why what is the need to have a real-time visibility of your supply chain and how you can leverage technology for the same. There has been a constant change in technology, and we're always adding technology in all aspects, and the current need of why I'm not very experienced in this field in terms of why IoT part of the operations or even implementing it. Uh, but I could see some reasons like geopolitical reasons where your supply chain is disrupted with something happening somewhere in the world, some part of the world, or your resources, your materials are scarce in something, and you had to move over or something like that. Sarang, what would your experience be on why we need to have a real-time view of what your supply chain is like, or what is your view on that?
I think supply chain is one of the most traditional industries. If you see, I think it started way back in 1900, if you may ask me, right? When there used to be bartering system, when there used to be transportation using trains and whatnot. If you look at that kind of an era, but then after the industrial revolutionization, especially some of the top industrial leaders around that time, take any example, the G's and the Fords and Hondas and all that, right? I think they started really defining the space for supply chain in a way. So if you want to define, like, supply chain still stands the same if you look at it in a different way. Uh, it is a complex you know process which has a human or labor, plus it has processes, right? So uh, the biggest change in the dimension, I think, and then the answer to your question, I think, in terms of why we need real time, is basically the biggest thing that has changed is the globalization. So earlier, when you talk about supply chains, were very very simple and short, right? Wherever whatever we used to produce, we used to consume, correct? So there was no need to transport anything. There was no need to have change of hands between different constituents of supply chain. That did not exist at all. But then, if you look at it from uh, most recent, especially after the internet era and the globalization, things have drastically changed. So biggest change that we can see on the supply chain side is, as I mentioned, globalization and interdependence between various entities, right? Because just as an example, like, and I'm just using some layman terms, but then something that is not produced in UAE is being sourced from somewhere else, correct? And that essentially establishes that kind of supply chain. And on top of that, there is a big change in terms of the technology revolution that got added to this dimension at the same time, right? So, and then this technology revolution has brought in, as I mentioned, labor plus process plus now there is systems, right? So all these new systems that have come in place. So all those things, when you look at it, all these things have created complexities, and that is why we need to have real-time visibility, because it is no more a singular process. So if you look at supply chain, it's no more a singular process now.
Yes, that's what exactly I was going through in my mind when we had the initial discussions. Uh, Ironically, the topic real-time supply chain is actually changing. That's what I have felt. It's becoming more of a supply node format. You have the same. If you're looking at if you're looking at a raw material, it has been the same raw material can be used in various processes, the various methods, and you are if you have a process or if you have a manufacturing process or if you have a process of modifying something or some adding some value, it is not only one product or one raw material you're looking. It's become a node as such, and having technology in terms of IoT or edge technologies of some sort has enabled us to get enable this node system instead of having a chain system, having a node system, get your raw materials from various places, get your raw materials from various locations, various quantities. That varies on how you're interpreting it. And what do you think is those kind of key considerations that we could do in terms of AI or IoT? How does that come into?
No, I think that's exactly like what I think you banged on like on the topic, right? Because I mentioned the way the technology had changed. It is complete. It's more than a revolution. It's more than that. It's a disruption, is what I'll call it. But then, like just thinking about few aspects of supply chain, right? As I was just talking, right? So essentially you have to look at it more focusing on the process part, right? Because process is the base for the supply chain. So I think whenever we embark on any supply chain project for that matter, right, the first and foremost thing is to make sure that we understand the key processes that are part of the supply chain. And there is a huge element of business process transformation that has come into play now. The processes have to be taught in a way that they are tying to your technology, they are tying to your global aspect, right, where you have multiple parties. Earlier the processes were very very straightforward, correct, because there used to be a back office. In the back office every process was defined, everyone used to sit in the same back office, all the parties. Even if you had suppliers, they were maybe at a distance of maybe not more than 100 miles. Even if there are distributors, they were like within the country. So it was very simple, correct? So now your processes have to be thought in a completely different manner. I think that is a big paradigm change, because many times what we have seen is any supply chain transformation programs which are done without considering processes as an important angle, they are have more chances of failure. So I think the process element and understanding of the supply chain industry part, right, is very very important, because again there are industry elements to it, right? So industry element wise, I think every industry has their own nuances in terms of supply chain. So you start from manufacturing. If you talk about chemical industries, right, if it's chemical manufacturing, there are different nuances. A pharma supply chain is a completely different supply chain as compared to any other supply chain. So considering the industry dimension, considering the business process dimensions is very important. Then I think then you transition to the technology aspect. Now, so on the technology front, like uh, means I kind of you know have created a short acronym for this. Is a JISAC, right? So what does JISAC mean? Is a G for globalization. We talked about it. Like you might have a supplier who is sitting like thousands of miles, or maybe 10,000 of miles somewhere in the world, correct? So globalization is a big thing, right? Then I is a industry part, right? So industry, if you look at industry wise, there is a completely new dimension, right? I'm not sure how many of you know about industry 4.0, if you are aware of what industry 4.0 is. So industry 4.0 is the vision. It's not something that is achieved by the industry yet, but then it's a vision. So 4.0 is making impact to every other supply chain transformation program. So that is the I. Then if you talk about the S part, which is a big one, I think, can anybody want to guess what is the S? So S is, no, it's important, but
Can I guess? I'm allowed to guess.
huh?
Shall I say that?
Okay.
Services,
Yes?
services,
No, actually it is sustainability, right? We had a session in the morning. So the entire supply chain is getting impacted hugely by sustainability, right? And then basically the next one is very simple. It's AI, and then last one is a cloud, right? So basically, if you look at this, technology part is humongously impacted by all these factors, correct? And when you think about a real-time supply chain, right? I think then you have to think about all these constituents. And he talked about a node concept, right? So that is where your process doesn't remain a linear process anymore. It is like every part of your supply chain becomes a node, and then it starts transmitting the right information to different nodes. and then basically you have to make sense out of it, right? And then especially if you look at the sustainability part, right? Earlier, when I used to procure from my suppliers, I didn't have to think beyond whether that particular supplier is kind of able to give me what I need in time with quality. That's pretty much. But then now I need to think if that supplier itself is sustainable or not, because if he is not following sustainability norms, then maybe my compliances are going to go back, correct? So I think then that impacts your process, correct? That starts impacting your process, and then it also starts impacting all the technology considerations you have to some extent as well. So basically that becomes very very important, and then your all your partners also need to transmit some data, right? So they become nodes in a different way. So I think basically your entire supply chain becomes a kind of a complex set of nodes and processes that have to be controlled, right?
So exactly, that's what we've begun the discussion with. It's ironically it's not becoming a supply chain; it's becoming a more of a set of nodes that are working that can work individually as well as a group. Work together to provide for a source. At the same time, like Sarat just mentioned, the sustainability part is very crucial right now. UAE, as many of you may have known, there is a lot of it's not only UAE. There's a lot of countries out there, but being in UAE, I can say that there's a lot more value into your business, a lot more value for your business when you are sustainable. But that's like I said, it's not for a country. It's for the globe. It's for us. It's there is a lot more valuable when you're sustainable, and that sustainability in your product is from your nodes, from where you're getting your products, from where how you're processing it. So it all comes down to that part. So here I'd like to add something that we were a part of, and we are proud to be a part of it. Is one of our clients back in India. They were a part of providing resources from the farm to uh, to the markets. And in this process, if you know that there is a lot of wastage that could happen when you're processing something you're getting from a farm. There is a lot of wastage that is accepted, but we were asked to provide a solution. We used ERP Next, and we provided a solution wherein they could manage the waste and re-divert the waste to another process, and that was used as a raw material for another process, and that is something that we are proud to say in terms of sustainability. And moving forward, let's go to the next section of this. How
Okay,
we
I just want to add to the point that you mentioned, which is a very interesting point, right? So I mentioned about cloud part as part of the technology impact. So if you look at the cloud element, actually nowadays it is synonymous with some of these platforms, right? So like he mentioned about ERP Next, it is a platform which kind of helps you. It's an open source platform which kind of helps you in making sure that some of these framework aspects are taken care, right? I think it gives you some features so that you can utilize them and cut your time for implementing it for your client. So I think similarly, large platforms. You take any large platform, right? They are their vision is now aligned in thinking in this direction that you know um especially making sure that all these considerations are put as part of their platform. So I think your starting point is choosing the right supply chain platform, right? How do you choose the right platform that can address some of your uh, key considerations in terms of processes, in terms of the nuances that you have, and then I think start from there. That's just a starting point. Many times the clients want to know what is the best platform to go, So I think that is where you will have to give them the right advice in terms of what are the key, or I'll call it as what are the most important aspects for them, where they are in the supply chain transformation journey. Because I will rarely find a customer who has not transformed it, to any extent. It's not like that, right? So all customers are on their journey, they are somewhere in between, and they are catching up with the new trends of the technology that are coming up. So I think that assessment has to be done, and once that assessment is done, then basically you start applying your levers in terms of, okay, what platform you have to choose. That is your starting point.
Exactly. So that is like we said, that is the what has to be done. So now the next question comes on how we can leverage technology, the real the essence of what we are doing with this chat. Uh, what is how are we going to implement this? So how are the different methods that we can do this? How can we apply? I mean, achieve this real time. There are from my experiences with our solutions that we have provided, and my previous experiences with my clients, we have only worked we've actually right now till now only worked with logistics, and I think that's a very crucial part. Moving things from one end to the other end of the chain, if it is a chain. uh, that is we have worked with clients uh, who are eager to just get that technology, get it done, get it run up and running, have a see it real time, where your trucks are, where your raw materials are. So this is all eagerly required, but like we had, I'm not going back to the previous discussion we had, but the gap of training, or the gap of the skill gap is actively there, and using the right platforms like you mentioned. So how do you think on your side, as someone in your profession, how do you think you can, what is your opinion on how we can achieve this?
Yeah, so I guess still many supply chains are very traditional, right? I think they have traditional players, like, what about my supplier who is doing into agro farm industry. They are like, sometimes they are natives, they are, maybe they are people, tribals, right? I think they are producing. I think we have seen many stories where coffee producers, right? They are tribals. So even those kind of constituents are there. But then I think good thing to see is that they are very very eager to adopt technology. I think many times some of the, especially the IoT, uh, you know IoT is driving, or edge devices is driving this, wherein they make it very comfortable, right? I think if you've seen the retail experience, right, feedback screen, right, where you have like smiles, right, on the scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you happy, not happy? Like, visual cues, right? I think they're using those kind of visual cues to capture things, so that knowledge barrier is kind of not is a hindrance. It just helps. So I think a lot of new technology players are coming in this space who are kind of disrupting these things, and you'll see very very good examples of such things where even traditional supply chains, which with participants who are not digitally equipped, or I would say digitally don't have a digital education, they are also kind of making a difference. So it is complex, but it has been done. It is being implemented. So I think this technology, that's where it is making a huge difference, right? In fact, like, I was seeing the demo that, or like the app that the AI, I'll say service that the gentleman talked here about. And it's like an aggregation, right? So it's those kind of things are going to be huge boost to supply chain, because I think that intelligence, right, and that's what, like, if you look at it, that is what is manifesting now. That I have I have to run my AI, but then my AI is completely dependent on that data, and I am just part of that supply chain. So basically, if you look at it, I am contributing to the supply chain. I'm improving the supply chain in a way, by enriching it with some intelligence, right? So, and that is all based on the data. So all these various constituents that we have is now pushing all different kind of data, and then we are making use of it.
Thank you. That was very valuable, and uh, putting it, going with that point itself, having an AI is seeping into everything right now, and when you're on the marketing front or on the sales front, when you say you have a solution for something and you add the word AI, it tends to add a little bit more value. I mean, even if it is not there in the initial phase or the POC, you can implement AI as something that is valuable. So, I was imagining what it could be, what it could end up to be. You could have a supply network as such, with edge technologies that give you that with RFID inventory tracking, RFID based inventory tracking for your assets coming from the raw materials coming from somewhere, your machinery working on something, your processed goods on something. All this data coming towards a central system, and AI, or an AI solution that has this data telling you that be wary of something is going to happen over here with the geopolitical situation and all this. This is a very long ahead in future, or is it near? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think, I think the possibilities are limitless. I think, as you mentioned, right, there are huge set of possibilities that we have in this space. Correct. So, I guess what is means I will say the short answer to your question, are we there yet? So the answer is yes. There are solutions, there are platforms that are already doing this, right? It's whether it is implemented or not for your customer, right? So there are platforms which are already doing this. There are capabilities. They have. Um, I think the platforms are building more. I'll call it as every platform is now bringing what I call as a AI infusion. So AI is getting infused in every layer, every process, just to make it faster, more efficient, and make it more sustainable, as I can call it, right? So that is where the platforms are spending their efforts. But then the platforms are available. It's all about choosing the right platform for your supply chain transformation, because I think if your clients are thinking that my supply chain is different, it is standard supply chain, it's a straight line, it doesn't need anything, right? I think then they will get disrupted, because the simple point is someone from the competition is going to deliver the goods, right? Currently, in this era, maybe you would have. I'm not sure if anybody ever heard about supply chain attacks. Have you heard about supply chain attacks? It's a competitive strategy, right? So there's a bit of competitive strategy, as well as there is a bit of geopolitical considerations over there. But then your supply chain is very fragile, and your customers need to understand that they need to uh, you know jump on the real-time supply chain journey. If they have not, start looking at the right platforms, make that choice, and see how they're taking all the players, all the constituents of supply chain together.
Another thing I would like to give an insight into something that we are working on. We have actually partnered as a solutions provider, as a service solutions provider. We have been working with ERP Next to provide a complete ERP solution for logistics. That is totally based on logistics. You have your trucks being monitored, you have your drivers being monitored, you have your whatever is being transported, everything is being managed. And along with that, we have partnered with an RFID company, RFID solutions provider based in US, Senatron, and along with that, we have actually added a value with RFID. We have actually been able to do the real time supply chain visibility. Part of it, we are actually be able to see where your goods are starting from, where they are right now, on an actual dashboard in real time. You can see where your goods are, where it is. Uh, this I can say that this is actually an innovation that we are trying to come up to in our ERP solution for the logistics client, where we are adding RFID along with some other technologies that we are not yet put our fingers in. This is what we are going to use, but that is one thing we are looking forward to it, and actually see the real time. But it's only part of the logistics. There are other problems in the supply chain, but I think
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Anish, that you shared. Actually, as I mentioned, right, as we move along, what we are going to see in future is that um, every participant in supply chain, right, you will call it as business. Let's call it as a business participant. Let's say your suppliers, your raw material manufacturers, all of them are going to be edge enabled, right? Whatever platforms they use, they're going to be age enabled. They will transmit the information. And you talk about the manufacturing part, right? Whenever your products are getting manufactured, right? All of the products that are getting manufactured, the products are going to be age enabled. So there are many cases. It's already implemented, not a new thing. Or products with RFID tags, as you mentioned, right? I think it's already there, right? Even the logistics part, all the vehicles, all your fleet tracking, all your ship tracking, everything is already age enabled, correct? Right. So I think with this, when everything is age enabled, what it becomes important is how do you make sense out of that information. That is an extremely critical element that becomes very important, because it is a huge amount of data, and that's where the cloud comes into, the computing comes into the play, and then that's where you have to choose the right platform which can scale to that level. So I guess it's very imperative that you have a platform that scales at that level, right? Go for the leaders, go for the platforms which are proven, right? Which can scale, right? I think the hyperscalers themselves are investing a huge amount into supply chain industry, right? So they are building clouds. We call it as industry clouds, right? So basically, they are building industry clouds now, where hyperscalers themselves take example of even AWS or Microsoft. They're all kind of building their own industry clouds around supply chain. So I think depending upon your size of customer, you should look at the right platform, correct, to go about it.
Saran, I think in one of our discussions outside this time, you had mentioned something of a watchdog, something that can look into and see the data. Can you give me just quickly give us something about that?
Yeah, so I think this is very interesting, and I think this is what things are like, kind of culminating to. If you look at all the platforms, they are now thinking about, and I think this concept started somewhere around 10 years back, when one of the supply chain leaders actually did it and implemented it. But then there are every other platform is now uh, you know building something called as a supply chain control tower. You'll come to this concept, and then every other platform has this supply chain control tower. So it's like a complete visualization of how your supply chain looks, which can be monitored from your command center, and then it will give you full visibility into right from your raw material to your even to your customer feedback, for that matter, post sale. It will give you information. Now I think another crucial element of this control tower is basically what are your agreements with all these parties. And I think before one of the panel discussions we talked about blockchain, right? I think so blockchain is also revolutionizing things. I think things are at an nascent stage over there, not evolved quite a bit. But then I think if you look at it, right, every interaction that you have, right, for with your supplier, with your distributor, with your raw material, everything is part of something called as a contract. You have a contract. So basically that contract is very crucial, and that contract has everything in terms of your relationship. Like for example, if I am sourcing something and it has to have a sustainability angle to it, then my contract will say that it needs to have these kind of clauses, right? That contract will have those clauses, correct? And then you will be able to check whether all those clauses are met, right? If as part of your supply chain control tower, you'll be able to actually see it. So even I'll call it as more of a proactive approach, and proactive plus real-time approach to make sure that some of the unforeseen scenarios that we talked about, right? Geopolitical situations, some kind of you know situations wherein there are adverse kind of things that are happening around, right? We saw that during the COVID, right? I think things were pretty much down, and then it impacted the entire supply chain for many customers. So I think those kind of adverse things can be proactively planned, correct? And I think another very important aspect into supply chain is diversity, correct? So supplier diversification, distributor diversification, these kind of things come into play. And now since ESG is there, which is like more on sustainability, so on ESG there are norms such as you need to have supplier diversification. That is one of the norms in terms of sustainability, right? And in terms of governance there are norms. So I think when it comes to all such norms, proactive approach really helps. So proactive approach, choosing the right platform to do your contracts, that is very important. Look for the leaders, look for the best platforms for contracts, look for the best platforms for your supply chain, and I think that is what will give you an edge as the things are getting disrupted. And the last but not the least is the AI. So the possibilities are limitless. Like when you're sitting on top of a huge amount of data, but then what use cases, I think we discussed in the morning, what use cases are going to be there. So I think that the use cases are still being defined, some places even implemented. So I think things are evolving very rapidly over there. So I think you have to pick on some use cases on the AI side.
Thank you, Sarang. And I think we have somewhere around 5 minutes left. I think we can open. If any of you have any questions to us, we can have a discussion. It's open. Okay, if there are no questions, we can just. You have some questions, or should we just?
Yeah, I think if there are no questions, I
no
think
questions, so we can conclude them. Thank you all. Thank you so much.